Are you wearing the best possible climbing shoes for you? Most climbers I meet in the gym could immediately improve their footwork and climb harder grades if they simply paid closer attention to their shoe choices. So by the end of today's video, you're going to have all the tools you need to pick your ideal climbing shoe based on your climbing style and goals that are immediately going to allow you to get more out of your feet while you climb, which is going to unlock harder grades. We're going to look at 7 characteristics that set different climbing shoes apart and talk about how to prioritize those different characteristics based on your goals. We're going to look at edge profile. We're going to look at toe box. We're going to look at stiffness. We're going to look at stickiness. We're going to look at toe hooking ability, heel hooking ability, and durability. Shoes we're going to look at today are the La Sportiva Solution. I've climbed a lot of hard boulders and routes in these. I still sport climb in these quite a lot, and I still boulder in these quite a lot in Waco for some reason. The Madrock Drone 2.0, been really psyched on these lately. A brand new pair of the Madrock Drone 2.1. Look at that, it's beautiful. This is my second pair of these. Absolutely love these shoes. I'm going to talk about why today. And I'm going to spend most of my time on these 3 pairs because there's a lot of good things to talk about, to compare and contrast, and you can apply all that understanding to any shoe you want to look at. But we're also going to look at the Madrock Drone CS, the Madrock Redline Strap, the La Sportiva Otaki, and finally the La Sportiva Katana Lace. Okay, let's look at the edge profile and toe box of the La Sportiva Solution. So this is a really unique thing that I've noticed with a lot of La Sportiva shoes. It's a very rounded edge profile. It's really interesting. It's almost like they built a no edge shoe and then added a little bit of an edge to it. And then I want you to notice about the toe box that it's very tapered. It really tapers down into this point, and that has some advantages. So yeah, this is just a very interesting and unique edge profile. Let's compare that to the Drone 2.0. Look at that. That's almost like a 90-degree edge. And this is not a brand new pair of shoes. I've had these for like 2 years and I've climbed in them quite a bit. So look at how different that edge profile is. I'm not saying it's better or worse. It's just very different. This is going to have different strengths and weaknesses than that more rounded edge profile. The Drone 2.0 also has a much more blunt toe box. So this is quite rounded right here, and it doesn't taper as much. So it's going to be very different when it comes to trying to fit into like a little slot or things like that. I'm going to show you guys how that plays out on the actual climbing wall in a second here. And then let's compare both of those to the Drone 2.1. This is a brand new pair. So this has, it's almost a combination of both of those shoes. It has the sharper edge profile that you can see, but then it also tapers down in the toe, allowing it to get into slots and things like that a little bit better. So let's look at how these different edge profiles play out on the wall, starting with the La Sportiva Solution. So I'm gonna go over to my tension board here. I've got a really small in-cut foothold. Let's get a better angle of that. So there we go. Like now you can see just how in-cut and small this foothold is. This is a really common foothold on the tension board, but it's also a pretty common shape outside. And what I want to show you guys is that with this kind of rounded edge profile, the shoe's not really getting in. I'm pushing the shoe against the wall right now, and the toe of the shoe is not really going to get behind the in-cut and really access the in-cut part of the foothold. So you're going to be able to push on this foothold. And the nice thing about the rounded shape of the shoe is that as you tiptoe, as you like roll up and move, you're going to be able to maintain some contact, but you're not accessing the in-cut part of the foothold. Now I want to compare that to the Drone 2.0. So here we are, same foothold, and this, as you can see, has a much more like 90-degree edge. And you're going to be able to get behind that a little bit, but look how blunt the toe is. So you're going to be able to get behind the in-cut and get better leverage on this foothold. But if you try to move your foot, the bluntness of the toe is actually going to roll your toe off the foothold and you're more likely to slip. So if you're doing extended moves, this shoe incentivizes you to drop your heel and keep your heel low, and it keeps you from extending through your foot, which is one downside of this shoe. Now let's compare that to the Drone 2.1. Look at that, you're able to get better leverage on the foot, and it's also narrow enough that if you start to extend, you're gonna maintain a little bit of that leverage behind the in-cut part of the foothold with this shoe. So on steep terrain, especially when you need to claw with your toes and stay on a small in-cut foothold as you get extended, this is gonna be a great option. But every foothold is different. This is just one foothold, and every climbing shoe is different, but hopefully showing you guys this, you'll start to pay attention to the edge profile in the toe box and how that interacts with different footholds. So what happens if you're using a slopey foot? Let's look at that next. So going back to the solution, this is a really cool example. This is like a sloping dish foothold that's often used in this direction. So take a look at that. You have this rounded toe profile, and that's almost a perfect fit for that foothold. So on something like that, that rounded profile is going to be a much better fit than this really hard 90-degree profile. Like that's just, you can see that there's like very little surface area. You're kind of just contacting the two sides of the foothold. You're not really like getting into that dish. You can actually see the little bit of a gap right there. And then similarly with the Drone 2.0, this is again kind of in between. Like you're getting a little bit better of a fit, but this is such a flat toe, you're just kind of contacting the outsides. This is pretty good, but it's not going to be as good of a fit for this foothold as the solution. One more foothold here. This is kind of a flat foothold with a little subtle bit of a scoop that you can see right there. And this is another circumstance where the solution is going to be a really nice fit. Like look at how well the profile of the edge fits the profile of the foothold. And the nice thing about this is that, again, you have like a range of movement that you can use while maintaining really good surface area and contact and friction on a foothold like this. So that's a place where a solution might really shine versus Drone 2.0. You're going to be able to maintain decent friction if you stay in this one plane, but if you start to move at all, you can see that gap. You can see the light immediately show up. This is a really stiff shoe, and because of that sharp 90-degree edge, it's going to be difficult to maintain friction unless you drop your heel and stay in this exact position. Then the Drone 2.1 is going to be similar to the Drone 2.0. Yeah, you guys get the idea. Hopefully you guys can start to see from that, talking about the edge profile and the toe box of these different shoes, that there's no such thing as a best shoe. The best shoe for you really depends on the circumstances and what types of footholds you're going to be climbing on. On steeper terrain, generally you're going to want to prioritize a shoe that can access the in-cut of small footholds. So if I'm board climbing at 40 degrees, 45 degrees or beyond, or if I'm trying to climb hard boulders outside, depending on the style, like in Waco tanks where there's these little patina crimps and things and you have to be able to claw into those with your shoes, I'm gonna go for the Drone 2.1 or something like this with a similar edge profile and toe box. It really allows you to get into those tight constrictions, leverage the in-cut part of the foothold and get behind the foothold. That's going to allow you to keep a lot more weight and tension through your feet on steep terrain. On the flip side, if I'm sport climbing and I'm climbing a route that has a lot more variety, it has some steep terrain, it has some slab, it has some in-cut footholds, it has some smears, I'm probably going to go for a more versatile shoe like the Solution. This edge profile just gives you a lot of freedom and options. It's not going to be as ideal for in-cut footholds, but this is a more well-rounded shoe. It's not as pigeonholed to being good at one specific thing. That's how I think about my shoe choices. You guys have probably figured this out by now, but I don't like to have just one pair of shoes. I like to have options. I usually bring 2 or 3 pairs of shoes to the boulders or to the crag, especially if it's a new area and I don't know what I'm gonna need. And I try to select a few different shoes that are gonna complement each other because you never know what you're gonna run into. So you don't have to go spend $500 on climbing shoes. I would make the best choice you can if you're just buying your first pair of shoes, or if you're restocking shoes and want to start over or kind of level up and get a nicer pair of shoes for the first time. I would just pick the ones that you're most drawn to that feel like the closest fit for what you like to do for your goals. And then you can always keep that pair and add a new pair and start to build out a little bit of a quiver. You know, the nice thing about wearing different shoes is that they don't wear out as fast, right? So I have amassed these over time. Some of these are kind of worn out and I don't use them very much anymore. But then, if I wear out a pair of shoes, I replace that pair and I still have this nice variety within my quiver. Okay, now let's talk about stiffness, stickiness, and durability. All three of those things are related. So generally speaking, the stiffness of the shoe is inversely proportional to the stickiness of the shoe and also the durability. So what I mean by that is if you have a really stiff shoe, so for example, the Drone 2.0 is a very stiff shoe, this is not going to be as sticky as the softer Drone 2.1 or as the La Sportiva solution. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is that the actual rubber is different. The softer rubber tends to be stickier, but also the softer rubber allows you to conform to the footholds a little bit more. So you're gonna get a little bit more friction and surface area when you push down on footholds. Stiffer shoes are likely going to be a lot more durable than less stiff shoes. It depends on the make and model and how well they're made by the manufacturer, of course. But for instance, these are really stiff shoes, these Madrock 2.0s, and I've worn these for like 2 years and the edge barely looks different than when I got them, which is crazy. These have lasted so long and these are a really, really durable shoe. In contrast to that, the Drone 2.1, this is already my second pair. I blew through these a lot quicker than the Drone 2.0 because they're a softer shoe. I think they're a better shoe overall, and the stickiness is really nice, and the flexibility, the softness of the shoe is really nice. I tend to climb even better in these than I do in the Drone 2.0. They're more versatile, they're stickier, they just stick to the wood better. I don't have as many foot slips when I wear these things, but they do wear out faster. So that's a trade-off, right? I might have to spend more money on shoes if I go for something like this. There's pros and cons to all these different things. One more thing to mention about stiffness is that stiffer shoes are more supportive and can be really helpful for heavier climbers. I'm a pretty muscular guy. I weigh about 175 pounds, not the heaviest climber out there, but also definitely not the lightest. And depending on the type of climb I'm trying, like if I'm using really small footholds, learning to climb in stiff shoes can be really, really helpful. I find that I get so much support out of the shoe. It can really help me keep a lot more weight on my feet, which directly helps me climb harder. That's especially important, I think, for sport climbing. I've done a lot of climbing at Smith Rock, and you tend to have to climb on really small footholds for a very long time. Sometimes you're on lead for 30, 40, 45 minutes, even an hour. I've been on some of my hardest on-sites for an hour at Smith Rock. And these were my go-to shoes when I climbed at Smith. They're very stiff. They have a nice sharp edge profile. This is a really old pair, but they have a really nice crisp edge for standing on small footholds. And they're really, really comfortable for me. They just happen to fit my feet really well. So I could wear these in a size that was really comfortable and didn't make my feet feel tired. And they were so supportive that I could keep trusting my feet and standing on small feet for 45 minutes at a time. Similarly, this is still my go-to trad climbing shoe. This is the La Sportiva Katana Lace. I wear these at a pretty comfy size. They're a good all-around shoe. They're really stiff, but they're really great for keeping a lot of weight on my feet for, pitch after pitch after pitch on a multi-pitch climb. Let's talk about the last two characteristics that we haven't covered yet, which are toe hooking ability and heel hooking ability. Every shoe, based on their shape and how they're designed, are going to have very different abilities when it comes to toe hooking and heel hooking. So using these examples, the solution has a decent amount of toe hooking rubber, but the toe hooking rubber doesn't go nearly as high on the shoe as the Drone 2.0 or as the Drone 2.1. Going back to the boxiness of the profile, this is really interesting because I've found that toe hooking with this shoe is better for certain shapes of toe hooks than the Drone. Basically, you can see there's like this big knuckle on the solution, and you can kind of hook that knuckle of your toe on little knobs and spikes and things like that when you're toe hooking. I'll show you what I mean on the wall in a second. The Drone 2.0 has a ton of surface area for toe hooking. This is one of the best toe hooking shoes I've climbed in, but it really depends on the toe hook. This is really great when you get a lot of surface area and can just bury your toe hook behind a feature or something like that. Again, it's also a really stiff shoe, which can be both good and bad. It's really good because structurally your shoe's not going to bend or twist very much at all, but you might not get as much friction and surface area conformity to the toe hook, to the foothold, to the rock as you would in a softer shoe. The Drone 2.1 is going to be really similar to the 2.0. There's just a little bit more space here where there's no toe hooking rubber that allows there to be a little bit more stretch and more give. And it means that this shoe will fit a wider variety of foot shapes. I have a wider foot compared to average, and so it's actually easier for me to wear these shoes than to fit my feet into the 2.0 just because they stretch a little bit more. But with that, the shoe's gonna give a little bit if you're like twisting to the side in a weird twisty type of toe hook. But these are really, really awesome toe hooking shoes. These are still probably my favorite. And then heel hooking, same thing. Every shoe is different. The stiffness of the heel is going to make a difference. The shape of the heel is going to make a difference. And you have to match, just like the toe shape of the shoe, you have to match the heel shape to the footholds that you're trying to use on your project. That's something to think about. The Solution famously has this very round, almost like a racquetball type of heel, which I weirdly like. A lot of people don't, but I really like it. The Drone 2.0 and the Drone 2.1 and all of the Madrox shoes pretty much all have this edge heel, which is kind of famous. So this will be really good for heel hooking on small crimps and edges and stuff like that. And it's kind of a narrower heel profile. I'll show you what I mean on the wall. But I find that this is like a secret weapon that's really amazing sometimes, but sometimes I do actually prefer a round heel. I'm going to show you guys why. So for heel hooking, let's look at a couple different holds. First, let's start with a small edge. This is about a 1 pad edge pinch, and I have had to heel hook on this hold on the tension board too. Sometimes you get stuff like this outside. So with the larger, rounder Solution heel, you can see that you're not really able to get much leverage on that foothold. It's contacting like right there, which you know is going to do something, but it's going to be really hard to use that heel hook in any meaningful way. Compare that to the Drone 2.0 with the edge heel thing. You're going to be able to get in there quite a bit better. And if you turn your foot, you can even get the edge to connect with the foothold and provide a little bit of mechanical leverage against the in-cut part of the foothold. But the heel's just narrower in general, so you're going to be able to get further back there. And the Drone 2.1 is the same or even narrower still. So you're going to be able to get a lot more out of that heel hook with the edge heel on the Madrox shoes. The one place where I really prefer a round heel sometimes is when you have to heel straight down on a sloper. So you run into this sort of stuff outside in compression on granite and things like that. Sometimes you actually have to heel hook a hold this way and pull straight down. And as you can see on something like the Solution, perfectly round, you can heel hook and get the same exact leverage this way as you can on the side of the heel. So that would essentially be the same as heeling this way or any other direction. Whereas on the Drone 2.0, you have the edge heel, which runs vertically up the back of the shoe. I don't love that because this is one case where now you have this vertical fin interacting with the hold, and that's actually going to reduce your point of friction, and I've slipped off a lot of heels trying to do that. So anytime I have to heel straight down, like in compression on granite, I tend to go for a round heel unless I really need this shoe for some other reason. So the same takeaway with toe hooking and heel hooking as with the edge profile and the toe box of these different shoes. Different shoes are going to be better or worse in different situations. I haven't talked about the Madrox CS or the Madrox Redline yet, so I'll do that briefly. These are going to be really similar to the Drone 2.1. I've actually mostly switched over to the Drone 2.1, and I don't use these as often as I used to. I still love these shoes. The biggest difference between these and the 2.1 are that these are going to be a little bit more versatile and a little bit less good at clawing into in-cut footholds. So these have a more blunt toe, less of a sharp talon of a edge profile and toe profile. And they're really comfortable. They're really versatile. They're the comp version of the shoe, right? The Drone CS, the comp shoe. So these are going to be better for standing on volumes or for standing on smears outside. And they have a little bit more power in the toe if the footholds stick out from the wall. So because this is a more of a blunt shape of a toe, like we saw with the Drone 2.1, if the holds stick out from the wall, you can get a lot of power in your toes right over that little bump or that edge or whatever it is that sticks out from the wall. So I tend to use these when the wall is featured, has little dimples sticking out and things like that. And I need a lot of power on a small, you know, dimple or something like that that sticks out from the wall. These are awesome shoes. And the Redline strap, this is just going to be a really versatile, pretty good all-around shoe. It's not going to be quite as high performing as the drones. The Drone 2.1 has so much more of a talon, so much more of sharp in-cut pointy edge profile and toe box. These are going to be higher performing on steep boulders, boards, things like that. But these are going to be a little softer, a little bit better for smearing and just like more well-rounded for a wider variety of footholds and circumstances and things like that. So that's about it. The most important thing to take away is now you have the tool to find the shoe or combination of shoes that work well for you. I combine shoes all the time. That's something I haven't talked about yet, but I will often wear a drone on one foot and a solution on the other foot if I need a round heel for one specific heel hook or something like that. And then just making sure that they fit your feet well. Every brand is different, every shoe is different. These brands just happen to work well for me, but there's tons of great brands on the market, tons of great shoes. So find the ones that fit your feet and then think about those 7 characteristics we talked about when selecting the best shoes for you. And that's pretty much it for this video. I hope that was helpful. Let me know what your favorite climbing shoes are and why in the comments below. My favorite climbing shoes right now are the Madrock Drone 2.1s. This is my second pair. I freaking love these things. The edge profile is amazing. It's a really like skinny tapered toe box, so you can really claw into small footholds. These are great on boards. They're great for steep bouldering. These have been my go-tos lately, but yeah, I still wear all these things. I still wear the Solution sometimes. I still wear the Drone 2.0. Still wear all of these. I love to sport climb in the Otakis. I still go trad climbing in the Katana Lace sometimes. I do have a partnership with Madrock, so if you want to check out the Drone 2.1 or any of the other Madrock shoes, head to madrock.com and use code NUGGET10 for 10% off at checkout. I hope this was helpful. Be sure to like and subscribe for more tip videos like this one. Peace.